Chapter 3, Part 2, Anger, the storm that consumes itself, anger's paradox. From the depths of blind rage, we enter the middle realm of anger, the territory most of us know well, where anger is present but controlled, simmering but not exploding, chronic but not acute. This is the realm of resentment, irritability, frustration, and annoyance, the low-grade fever of anger that colors our days without necessarily consuming them. Here, anger becomes more sophisticated, more subtle, and more insidious. We learn to mask it, to channel it into passive aggression, to express it through sarcasm, criticism, and withdrawal. We become masters of the cutting remark, the heavy sigh, the cold shoulder, and the door slammed, just a little too hard. This controlled anger feels safer than rage, more civilized, and more acceptable. We pride ourselves on not losing control and on keeping our anger in check. But in check is not the same as processed, and controlled is not the same as resolved. The anger is still there, just buried deeper and expressed more subtly, corroding us from within, like acid eating through metal. Resentment is anger fermented, aged, allowed to mature in the dark cellar of the heart. It is the grudge we nurse, the grievance we rehearse, the offense we replay endlessly in the theater of our mind. Each replay makes us angrier, reinforces our righteousness, and deepens the groove of victimhood. They had no right to treat me that way, we tell ourselves over and over. They should apologize. They should acknowledge what they did. They should change, should suffer, and they should pay. Maybe they should. Maybe we were genuinely wronged, genuinely mistreated, or genuinely harmed. Maybe our anger is entirely justified. But here is the cruel paradox. Our justified anger hurts us far more than it hurts the person we're angry at. They go about their lives, often unaware of our seething resentment, while we carry the burden of our rage, like a backpack full of stones. Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. This is the storm that consumes itself. Anger, held, nursed, and fed, does not ultimately harm those who wronged us. It harms us. Chronic anger changes our neurology. It trains the brain to default to irritation, to scan for threats and slights, to interpret ambiguous situations in the most negative light possible. We become the person who is always annoyed, always frustrated, and always ready for a fight. And who wants to be that person? Who wants to live that way? And yet, we cannot simply decide not to be angry. Anger does not respond to commands or yield to willpower. Telling an angry person to calm down is like telling a drowning person to swim, theoretically helpful, but practically useless. Anger has its own logic, its own momentum, and its own purpose. For anger, when understood correctly, is not the problem. Anger is information. It tells us that a boundary has been crossed, that something we value has been threatened, that a situation needs to change. Anger is the bodyguard of our values, the defender of our worth, and the alarm system alerting us to violations. The problem arises not from feeling anger, but from what we do with it. Do we let it consume us, or do we listen to what it's trying to tell us? Do we act it out destructively, or do we use its energy constructively? Do we identify with it completely, or do we hold it with awareness, recognizing it as a temporary state rather than a permanent identity? In this middle realm, we begin to develop a more mature relationship with anger. We learn to feel it without immediately acting on it. We create space between the stimulus and the response, between the trigger and the reaction. We pause, breathe, and investigate what's really happening beneath the anger. Often, beneath anger, we find fear, fear of not being valued, fear of being controlled, and fear of being hurt. Beneath anger, we find pain, the pain of not being seen, not being heard, and not being respected. Beneath anger, we find unmet needs. The need for safety, for autonomy, for fairness, for love. When we can identify these deeper layers, anger becomes a messenger we can work with rather than a master we serve. We can say, I notice anger arising. What is it trying to protect me from? What does it need? This is the beginning of transformation. Stay tuned. To be continued.